Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphanlast, aka Skylar Madison, and welcome to the Draconian Rain collaboration, where I'm going to go ahead and finish this image that Draconian Rain went ahead and drew on my channel. And in the previous video, I stated that the final step that I planned on doing was taking the Affinity Designer work and putting it into Affinity Photo and using photo filters in order to add more variety to the color palette and all that good stuff. And you know, I was totally down with that towards the tail end of the video, but I'm still experiencing problems with brush tools in Affinity Photo. I don't know what it is. I've contacted their customer service. Right now I'm being passed on to another branch of their customer service, and I basically need to make a private video on YouTube in order for me to actually show what the problem is, because I'm tired of typing it up. And so basically, it really wasn't an option. The brush tool wouldn't interact with the masking process of, or even the erasing process of filters and such. So I decided, well, at the tail end of the video, I was like, well, it's pretty much a finished image. It looks good. And so, I mean, and this isn't me half-assing it. This is me actually looking at the image and actually enjoying the view and appreciating the picture for what it is. And it would have been nice to be able to add that last step. It's like just a little tiny cherry on top and all that, but it wasn't really that necessary. Now, all of the stuff that you're seeing on the screen right now is kind of a continuation of the last thing that I was doing in the previous video in this collaboration. But right now, I pull out the raster tools instead of Affinity Photo. And there are some exemplary tools for raster work inside of Affinity Designer. But it's not a Photoshop replacement. It's not Affinity Photo by any stretch of the imagination. You have some raster tools, and you're able to do some really cool stuff with it. But I would prefer to draw inside of Affinity Photo. Just simply because I like using filters and all that. But I'm not going to dwell on previously mentioned material too much. One of the struggles that I was experiencing right about this time was the issue that she's a jellyfish mermaid, and she's surrounded by 6 jellyfish. So normally when you do any type of artistic work on a character that's humanoid or anything like that, you have shadows and highlights. Well, you have all those jellyfish that are glowing in the dark, and you don't really have much of an opportunity for shadows. So I decided, well, I'm just gonna add highlights, and hopefully that will be good. Maybe, I don't know, it looks a little surreal or weird to not see any shadows, but this is fantasy. You can get away with some crazy looking stuff, and so I think I took advantage of that, and I don't think I took advantage of it in a bad way. I think everything turned out really nice. And you know, Draconian Rain, she's actually finished the image that I drew on her channel. If you guys would like to take a look at the image that I drew and her final coloring process of my image that I drew on her channel, there's a link to her channel and the videos in the video description below if you guys would like to check that out. She's a really nice person. Now, I don't know if everyone feels like this, but for me, you know, there comes a point where I just kind of felt like I lost my faith in humanity to some extent, and I kind of participate with, I guess, socializing out of necessity and stuff, such like that. But occasionally, you know, somebody starts talking to you, and they come across as a genuine human being, and that that to me feels extremely rare. And she comes off as a genuine human being, and if there's anybody that deserves kind words and attention, it's her. She's a good person, genuinely and truly. And so with some of the stuff that I mentioned in the previous video, to kind of segue and change the topic a little bit and talk more about what I'm doing on the screen, or just the workflow. Basically, in the previous video, what I said was early on, I feel like the work that I did was really sloppy. What I was doing was I was creating different layers for all these different strands and stuff like that, and merging them into one layer. Now, it's not like everything's on one layer. You can see my layers panel. There's a lot of layers. But I had things categorized and placed into their segmented layers. So basically, I felt like initially that was probably sloppy. And so I decided, okay, I'm just going to keep all of these thousands of layers separate and all that. And, I thought that was more professional. And I think that probably depending on what sort of workflow you're going to go for, I think that leaving them separate is just going to cause a lot more work for you, especially if you're planning on pulling out the raster brush. Because the raster brush has to basically clip onto or group onto a layer, and then it behaves as if it's a mask. The vector work, it's a mask for your brush work, which is really cool. But later on, when I got to this part where I was trying to work with all these thousands of different layers, I wound up really slowing down significantly. You can see me slowly adding effects and turning layers on and off just so that I could see what I was working on that layer. So it was a little bit of a pain at this stage of the video. I did try to merge them like I did with the previous portions of the image, but for some reason that would just wind up deleting all of my work. So that was weird. And, there were a couple of occasions where Affinity Designer decided to behave really oddly. I mean, I'd do the same workflow that I always did, and then it wouldn't respond the way that I wanted to. Maybe it's me that's at fault, and it probably is me that's at fault. I am new to the program. But it didn't really feel like I was at fault. I mean, it genuinely felt as if the program just wasn't behaving properly. Maybe after I use the program more and more and become more proficient, I'll be able to identify whether I'm the problem or if it's Affinity Designer. But I really hope it's me. I really hope that I'm the problem in this case, because there's some pretty cool stuff with Affinity products. They have Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo on iPad. So, you can interchangeably send your files to your iPad and send them over to your computer and such like that, which is really cool. Here you see me kind of playing around with some filters and such to soften the brushwork, the line work and all that. And I didn't want it to feel like a comic book. I just wanted it to feel a little bit more diffused, and I don't know. To me, that looks a bit more like a jellyfish or a series of jellyfish and all that good stuff. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining me. Be sure to give Draconian Rain some love. She's a good person, and she deserves it. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys would like to get more notifications from me, feel free to click on the bell, follow me on Twitter or something. If you guys would like to see more of my content, feel free to click on anything that's appearing on the screen right now. And thank you very much for your time.